Good evening and welcome to the Tibet Center here in New York City at 151 West 30th Street, 3rd floor. So we'll begin by reciting the prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West, which you'll find in the FAQ section scrolling down. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems, and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living there, together with their new ones, who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of pure Dharma be dispelled. May an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like a waxing moon, and especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teaching, which is a source of benefit and happiness. May they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we had hoped and wished. Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once. The Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi, which examines the Dharma's called profound illumination. And at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, "How should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge?" And Avalokiteshvara answered, "Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this. Seeing the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form, form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness,
constitutional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They need to decrease or increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no constitutional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of light, no qualities of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness, no endowments of ignorance of old age or death, no enduring out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge. And since there is no exterior of mind, they have no fear, they transcend falsity and capacity beyond bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell on the past, present, and future, by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all sufferings should be known as truth. For there is no exception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantras proclaim, Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhisoha. O Shariputra, this is how Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. And the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, profound transcendent knowledge should be practice just as you have taught, and without doubt will rejoice. When the Blessed One has said this, Share Keshvar, that whole gathering in the world with its gods, humans, Ashuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praise the words of the Blessed One.
And we generate bodhicitta with the wish to
Free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the mysteries of the world. With the wish to free all things, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the mysteries of the world. With the wish to free all things, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the mysteries of the world.
So, Leslie had asked me what we were going to be discussing this evening.
I did.
And Darren, I think you asked what we were going to be discussing this evening. Tony, I think you asked, what are we going to be discussing this evening?
What I already know here.
A few years ago, I was in Dharamsala. I was at that time abbot of Ratu, and I received an urgent summons to come to the office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And when I arrived there were all the secretaries of His Holiness from the different sections, the Tibetan section, the English section, and the Chinese section. And there was the liaison officer, the representative from the Indian government's Ministry of External Affairs, and then the internal security person, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who began talking about how comfortable and well we were, and what a nice environment this was. It was a cool morning in the beginning of a very nice day, and he said we're all well and comfortable and happy, and it's a nice environment. But he said, but within this world, in many different places, people are suffering tremendously. There are wars going on in certain places. There are heat waves in certain places. There are natural disasters in certain places. There are different forms of intense suffering being experienced by human beings in different parts of the world. And he said, though many of these are natural and we can't really do anything about them, many are man-made. Many of the problems that people are experiencing, sufferings that people are experiencing, are the product of man-made problems. And he said this suffering that is being experienced, that is provoked by human beings, is due to unethical behavior on the part of the beings who are provoking these things. And this is something that we human beings are responsible for, and this is something that we really have to train and develop the next generation to refrain from. It is our responsibility to work towards forming a future generation to not engage in the unethical behavior that is causing this man-made suffering around the world. And it was with that introduction that he then talked about the secular ethics curriculum that His Holiness wished to make available to the school systems around the world. And he was asking the people present to assume responsibility for bringing this secular ethics training out into the world, into the schools, universities, but also into help develop an awareness of the importance of developing ethics. The premise being that this behavior that was causing suffering came from a lack of ethics, came from behavior or actions that were being engaged in without any concern for ethics. And this came from the fact that there wasn't any kind of training in ethics that the people who were engaging in this had undergone, that there wasn't an awareness of what ethics are. And it's really in that light that we at the Tibet Center are focusing on this development of secular ethics. We're living in a time when there seems to be less interest in any kind of religious training or spiritual training in a more traditional sense. We're living in a time when the culture today is very much of a lay culture. It's a culture that is not interested in sort of traditional religious values or spiritual doctrine, things like that. And so His Holiness's introduction of secular ethics is really an attempt to speak to people in a way that is free of any kind of sort of spiritual or religious what would you call it, packaging or accoutrements. And the book by His Holiness that we have been concentrating on for the last many months before I left was Beyond Religion. The idea being that His Holiness was teaching us how to cultivate a behavior, a way of being free of any kind of religious baggage, really trying to find the logic in behaving in proper, or let's say ethical ways. We went through that book once. We can go through it many times. It's got an enormous depth of value. But I thought that we would go through His Holiness's first book on where he introduced secular ethics, and that is Ethics for the New Millennium. So I will read, we will discuss. Please let this be a discussion where you feel free to stop me, come up with your own ideas. We will discuss. So he starts, this is Secular Ethics for the New Millennium by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Preface. Having lost my country at the age of 16 and become a refugee at 24, I faced a great many difficulties during the course of my life. When I consider these, I see that a lot of them were insurmountable. Not only were they unavoidable, they were incapable of favorable resolution. Nonetheless, in terms of my own peace of mind and physical health, I can claim to have coped reasonably and well. As a result, I've been able to meet adversity with all my resources, mental, physical, and spiritual. I could not have done so otherwise. Had I been overwhelmed by anxiety and despair, my health would have been harmed. I would also have been constrained by my actions. So let's just take that. And there's this sentence, nonetheless, in terms of my own peace of mind and physical health, I can claim to have coped reasonably and well. And I think that from that we can really derive the message that it is important that we work towards maintaining our own peace of mind, by coping reasonably well with the challenges that we have in our life. So we all have challenges in our life. How do we assume them? How do we navigate through them, keeping our own peace of mind and thereby our physical health?
Could you be more specific?
No. In general, as we navigate life, we have challenges. So the first thing we have to recognize is that though there are challenges out there, many of which we really can't do anything about, the thing that we can do something about is our attitude to them. How does that affect us, and how should we work at navigating the challenges that come?
Kind of lesson we learn from challenge?
The lessons we learn from the challenge. So a lesson that you learn from the challenge, we have already we've already been provoked by the challenge. So you're talking about digesting the fact that we've been provoked?
Like, no, it's so recognizing that there is a challenge, and in that challenge, the lesson should be learned. And like learning the lesson and moving forward.
So this is very important. When we have challenges in life, if we approach the challenge with the attitude that there is a lesson to be learned or that can be learned, I don't think we should think of challenges as good things, but we can think of challenges as providing opportunities that are good.
To grow,
Yeah.
to be a better person.
Yes.
Like for example, if something is like triggering me in another person, like aggressive behavior, what is it? The answer, like the question would be, why is it like either why is it triggering me, or what did I do to trigger it? So kind of like asking questions.
Yes. Good evening. And what did I do to trigger it? So, assuming responsibility for the challenges that come, this is something we talked about some. If we believe in the laws of karma, we have to assume that the challenges that we confront, we are responsible for. How do you feel about that?
It's true. It is
Sorry?
our life is a samsaric life, and that's what enlightenment is. And that's the nature of the beast. We're going to face challenges, and it's a given. You might as well prepare for it. That's what.
Well, we're going to face challenges, that's a given. But to accept that the challenges that we are confronted with are actually of our own making is an enormous acceptance.
Very hard.
But also recognizing it, we can recognize that we have agency, that we're not just victims, that right now we're causing our future. So, yeah, that can give you a little bit more sense of empowerment.
Yes, I think that's very valuable, Mark. The whole idea that when we acknowledge that we are facing a problem that is the result of our own past actions, it's not that we simply stop there, but that we accept that that dynamic enables us to change the future.
Well, climate change is the result of our ongoing actions as well as our past actions. But I'm not sure, how would you recommend that we change, modify?
Contribute to diminishing the effects of climate change?
Yeah, how would you suggest that we do that? We just threw out all the rules about modifying greenhouse gases and...
Wait. There is the government,
Yeah,
and there is me.
yeah.
The part of this that we actually have control over is evidently not the government.
Well, then we're stopping the wind farms. And, I guess that's the government doing that. So,
But there are all sorts of individual ways that you can contribute in a positive way or in a negative way to global
well,
warming.
not driving a car, yes, for example. But what are we, as individuals at home, going to do to improve climate change problems?
So
Stop running the air conditioner?
I don't know, I'm asking you.
Well, I don't have the answer. I don't know what to do.
So there are little things throughout the day that we might perceive that we can engage in to contribute. No?
Stop reading the newspaper about the torrential rains and the typhoons and.
I don't think stopping reading the newspapers is going to. How does that contribute?
Well, it'll change the mentality. If I don't read about torrential rainstorms and
You can't handle certain
earthquakes. Well, yeah, that's the.
Well, it's all of us.
Well, I do find it
You
sad.
can't dosage yourself.
No,
More rain for Nepal. Yeah, I find that maybe if I didn't read those things, I would maintain better equanimity.
maybe. I think for now it's good to know what's going on in the world.
How does that help?
It helps me develop an awareness of the challenges that we are facing, and it helps me, it provokes me to think about what I actually can do.
Just recognizing it that it is happening, and I personally cannot do anything about it, but being aware of it. Just like I know that I'm going to die one day, I cannot do anything about it, but what I can do is to live in my kindness every day and choose this today instead of thinking about the day when I'm going to die. Same with I guess with the climate change. Like I cannot change the fact that it's changing, and it's either us that's changing it, or maybe the earth itself changing it. And like just an everyday making choices every day about like using plastic, not using plastic, kind of like doing those little things.
So this is, we're talking, we might think, come on, what is this you're talking about? This is evident little stuff. But actually, if we think about engaging in a spiritual practice, which is what brings us to a place like the Tibet Center, these are the real ways in which we can try to confront the difficulties, the challenges, that we are confronting as a society today, and I don't think it's arbitrary. I think that it's vital, and I think that to think about these things like in the morning, to consider or to assume responsibility for my actions throughout the day, and to really determine to make the choices when I can towards contributing to a better world, and take the actions of refraining from engaging in behavior that will harm. That's really the essence of a spiritual life. And it's there's no dogma, there's no sort of weird stuff. It's just the essence of how we're meant to behave, which is what I think you're talking about. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think that's the heart of it with that topic, is it really comes back down to how can I be a good steward for others who are going to come after me of this world, and then like you were saying about the effectiveness of like what can I actually do, and then I know personally for me it comes to hoping that maybe I'd be presented with an opportunity to have an actual impactful change, and if I don't, then I can at least in my personal dwellings and so on, in this small little pocket, I can leave it nice for the next person who will come after me, clean after me, and so on.
Children. Okay. Looking around, I see that it is not only we Tibetan refugees and members of other displaced communities who face difficulties. Everywhere, in every society, people endure suffering and adversity, even those who enjoy freedom and material prosperity. Indeed, it seems to me that much of the unhappiness we humans endure is actually of our own making. In principle, therefore, this is at least avoidable. I also see that in general, those individuals whose conduct is ethically positive are happier and more satisfied than those who neglect ethics. Now that's another, I think, point to dwell on. The whole idea that acting in an ethical way, acting in a generous way, acting in a way that refrains from getting angry, brings us happiness rather than thinking of ethical behavior as being merely beneficial for the world around us or for others. We are happier. How do you think about that?
Could be also a little chicken and the egg.
Yeah, but we can leap in
Yeah.
either as an egg or as a chicken, and it's all positive. I'm sure that even, you in your profession of working to cure people, you are bringing them, you're alleviating their physical ailment or their emotional ailment. And how does that make you feel?
Yeah.
Which is the chicken and which is the egg, just for...
Well, but there's also ego involved because, there's ego gratification also. It's not entirely, if I'm honest, it's not entirely selfless, right? It brings the ego gratification to, in instances where I feel good at what I do, or I feel like I'm improving at what I do or what I love. It's a wonderful side effect, no pun intended, to help people and to make them happy. But I've always taken exception to, there's always a pet peeve of mine, a lot of people in my profession, whether it's Chinese medicine or even Western medicine, who claim that they got into it just so they could help people, especially people who go into pre-med at 17 years old. I'm cynical to believe that these privileged pre-med students are such selfless Buddhas that this is the motive, right? That this is the impetus. Whether it's financial or whether it's just something that you're intellectually passionate about. I know for me, it's wonderful. It's very joyful to be able to help people and when they get better. But my impetus was intellectual gratification.
Intellectual gratification.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
But that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, there's nothing inherently unethical about that. But but the selfless part, if I'm honest, is not what I led with, But it's very welcome benefit of it.
So deriving intellectual gratification is not contradictory with modesty. Well, let's ask our debater here.
Intellectual gratification and modesty.
Yeah. Musum muji galwa tunsi.
Four possibilities.
Okay. Okay.
He's studying
But which
debate.
are?
There's something that's both. There's something that's.
Wait. what? Give us one of each.
Let's see. Studying a Buddhist text that talks about humility or talks about the benefits of letting go of self-cherishing. There can be intellectual gratification of that analysis, and at the same time, there can be a realization maybe of modesty through that.
And there can be also, I think, if you're a
Yeah,
doctor.
no, very much so. It's, yeah, I'm humbled by the impossibility of mastery of Chinese medicine almost every single day. I read almost every night, much to my wife's chagrin many nights, but I read the text every night. You can never fully master it. But yeah, so that it's similar to him. Where it's both.
We'll spare you the other three.
Is it bad to mentally rejoice for doing good deeds?
Not only is it not bad, it's considered to be a good, positive, it develops enthusiasm for doing good. At the end of our day, we're meant to look over our day and rejoice in the good deeds that we've done. That helps us continue to engage in good deeds.
I think somewhere along the way, at least for me, that there was an idea that I can't have joy again or rejoice in these things. I should be more selfless. But it sounds like, I can have a spoon of the cake too, a little bite, so to speak. Give most of it away, I get a spoon, it's okay. Tomorrow I'll make a new cake.
So, but let it be something that you think about. In other words, before you go to bed, when you go over your day, we're not talking about pride or, a certain arrogance. We're talking about rejoicing and you try to make it selfless. And we have a little bit of control over that if we think about it, if we can catch ourselves.
So it also comes to again to the everyday choices. Do we choose to enjoy the actions of our everyday life, or we're I'm suffering because I have to do it, or choosing actions of even intellectually teaching someone or helping someone or healing someone and enjoy the result of it because I would go because I enjoy doing what I'm doing and I enjoy the results. So that kind of how I guess we will get closer to selfless because we're not choosing to suffer.
So is there a difference between enjoying the results and rejoicing in the fact that we have engaged in a virtuous action?
Yes, there is a difference.
So I think here we're talking about specifically when we review our day, rejoicing in the virtuous actions that we've done.
Specifically, ones you set out to do in the morning when you make the morning meditation, I will do this and that.
Yes.
Then you fulfill that, and that's very good because it builds you up. And that's clean. That's all I think.
Yes.
That happens too often, but
Great spirit.
If on the way we enjoy doing that, that's great. I don't think that there's any harm in that. I mean, when you're sticking needles into people, do you stick needles into people?
Yeah, I love it. That's one of my favorite part. I do love that. But then, yeah, I'm sorry, what's your name? brought up for me because in my work I can do that, I can enjoy it and help people. But then it's like maybe approximately 1 day a week, I go to visit and help my mom, who has dementia, and there's no pleasure at all. And so I can drive home and rejoice and tell myself I'm a good person and this is a good thing to do. But it's a different kind of instance as far as my experience of it, obviously.
No satisfaction.
Yeah, there's satisfaction.
There's no joy in the moment.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
No pleasure, yeah.
How
There's
can
no
you
joy in
probably
them.
turn it into like, pleasure, or like
I don't know.
joy,
I don't
helping
know.
your mom?
Yeah, there's something deep down, but it is only in the kind of knowledge that or feeling that I'm doing something good or helpful or virtuous.
But that's wonderful. I mean, I think it's very important. When dealing, I've just come back from a month with my father who has dementia, and hello. I think that first of all, the acknowledgement that life is suffering. The first noble truth that the Buddha taught was the truth of suffering, and our lives are impermanent, and developing an awareness of that and acknowledging the suffering nature that we are dealing with is important. That's a reality that we really have to work at. If within that we can actually be helpful, there's something quite wonderful about that. It's not that we come out cheering, but to acknowledge that wonder and to rejoice in it, rejoice in our having assumed whatever amount of engagement or responsibility that we can I think is something important.
I agree.
So, this confirms my belief that if we can reorientate our thoughts and emotions and reorder our behavior, not only can we learn to cope with suffering more easily, but we can prevent a great deal of it from arising in the first place. I shall try to show in this book what I mean by the term positive ethical conduct. In doing so, I acknowledge that it is very difficult either to generalize successfully or to be absolutely precise about ethics and morality. Rarely, if ever, is any situation totally black and white. The same act will have different shades and degrees of moral value under different circumstances. At the same time, it is essential that we reach a consensus in respect to what constitutes positive conduct and what constitutes negative conduct, of what is right and what is wrong, of what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. So, before we hear His Holiness's explanation of this, here we talk about reaching a consensus in respect to what constitutes positive conduct and what constitutes negative conduct. What is right and what is wrong. What is appropriate and what is inappropriate. What are your thoughts about those divisions? what is right and what is wrong, what is appropriate, what is inappropriate, what is positive, what is negative. What should our compass, what should our criterion or criteria be?
Well,
We have to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings, and I think that's the only way that I know of that will be, one would be able to do something about the ozone layer disappearing, so that we would have oxygen for people to breathe on this one. Attain Buddhahood.
That's not my question.
Whichever, okay, well, can you break down the cause and effect then? The best way to attain Buddhahood, which would be then answering your question about what's the right, what's correct and what's not correct.
So, wow.
I think the consensus, I think we live in a beautiful time from my generation's vantage point, where a lot of the hard work for consensus, in one sense, has been paved. Because I have access to all the world's religions and all the things that people thought were good from around the world. And when I compare them all together, I get a nice list of like, okay, this seems to be what's agreeable to everyone, or most everyone. I do also am not blind to the fact, though, that there's a percentage of people that do not agree to this consensus. Obviously, in this country either, so it's a bit challenging, but I do think that if you take all those good things and you compare them and you start breaking it down with logic, we get a sort of, at least the beginnings of a compass, you know. I think the world over we can all agree, please don't steal, please don't hit others with that for any reason, don't just walk around committing violence, don't set buildings on fire. That's my in first grade. I can think of.
You give it his awareness that he respected all the religions and saw the consensus. Yeah.
And I think that's also, from the Buddhist standpoint, like you were saying, as long as like, comparing those, was a litmus test of his own right there from what he's grew up and taught, and you know, something to test against and say, no, this is agreeable. I would not like my house burned down. I would not like to be hit. And I don't particularly, I mean, as long as it might give you, you know, the shirt off his back. But, you know, that's just me.
So a consensus, whether our actions are selfish as opposed to selfless, whether our actions are ethically virtuous as opposed to non-virtuous, whether our actions, well, I said selfish and selfless, are beneficial as opposed to being harmful. Could those be criteria that fulfill these three? We reach a consensus in respect to what constitutes positive conduct, as opposed to negative conduct. I don't know whether that's too harsh, but I'm throwing it into the mix. Whether actions are motivated by selfishness or whether they're motivated by a wish to benefit others. Does that work?
He's talking about basic societal rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what that works. Yeah, well, the harmful, not harmful, selfish stuff. Yeah.
But sometimes selfish in itself, it doesn't mean that somebody's going to want to harm someone. Even though like you put selfish into like a negative basket, it's not always like in terms of harming someone.
But here, harming, it's the categories are what constitutes positive conduct and what constitutes negative conduct. Second one is what is right as opposed to what is wrong. And the third is what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. How do we...
Let's say kindness.
So whether an action is engaged in with kindness as
I
opposed
would say with love, but love is such a vague word, and
Motivation.
but everyone knows kindness. And if you're acting kind towards yourself and others, it will be either like you're in a positive basket, right? And like if your actions are kind, so you're towards yourself and towards others, then you can kind of navigate into an ethical, not ethical, harmless, not harmless.
So kindness. So one criterion is kindness, whether something is engaged in as kind or with kindness or not. Another?
Follow the 10 Commandments.
That's if you are following the 10 Commandments, that's the
Almost exactly the kind of virtue.
I think like harm is pretty universal, right?
which
You know, harm, like you inherently almost know what is harmful and what isn't. What is pain and what is not pain.
I think you can set up frameworks, but I think that's a real problem if there's a moral authority that's rigidly imposed top down. That we have to take personal responsibility within the framework like the 10 virtues.
So that's why what we're discussing now is what framework we should, how we should approach this, how I should approach this.
So I think that Buddhist list and also the Christian list of the 10 virtues, 10 non-virtues, is a good framework.
What constitutes positive conduct as opposed to negative conduct? What constitutes right as opposed to wrong? What constitutes appropriate? So there can be whether you cook the pasta al dente as opposed to overcooking it.
Wrong in the sentence. The past everyone relied on religion for these rules. Now we have to rely on ourselves, which was not your right religious. That's the end of the paragraph. So we have to find some way of establishing basic ethical principles. Let's figure it out here and tell everyone else.
Tell ourselves. Don't overcook the pasta. I think.
But also earlier in the paragraph it says things are rarely ever black and white.
That's right.
So
We can attest to that. There's shades and all that.
At the same time, it is essential that we reach a consensus in respect to what constitutes positive conduct and what constitutes negative conduct. And we can do that. So, to read the end of the paragraph, which Tony has begun. In the past, there was the respect people had for religion meant that ethical practice was maintained through a majority following one religion or another. This is no longer the case. We must therefore find some other way of establishing basic ethical principles. Okay, to go on. Not that the reader should suppose that as Dalai Lama I have any special solution to offer. There is nothing in these pages which has not been said before. Indeed, I feel that the concerns and ideas expressed here are shared by many of those who think about and attempt to find solutions to the problems and suffering we humans face. In responding to the suggestion of some of my friends and offering this book to the public, my hope is to give voice to those millions who, not having an opportunity to articulate their views in public, remain members of what I take to be a silent majority. The reader should, however, bear in mind that my formal learning has been of an entirely religious and spiritual character. Since my youth, my chief and continuing field of study has been Buddhist philosophy and psychology. In particular, I have studied the works of the religious philosophers of the Gelug tradition, to which by tradition the Dalai Lamas belong. Being a firm believer in religious pluralism, I've also studied the principal works of other Buddhist traditions, but I have had comparatively little exposure to modern secular thought. Yet this is not a religious book. Still less is it a book about Buddhism. My aim has been to appeal for an approach to ethics based on universal rather than religious principles. So maybe we'll stop here.
That's very fair.
Okay. Oh, we've been asked to pray for Dr. Jane Goodall as we read the Sutra of the Recollection of the Noble Three Jewels. I prostrate to the Omniscient One. Thus the Buddha, Bhagava, Tathagata, Arhat, Samyak Sambuddha, the learned and virtuous one, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans is the Buddha Bhagava. The Tathagata is in accordance with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of treasures of merit. He is knowing the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strength cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of Bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of Nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He is not stained by the realm of desire. He is not stained by the realm of form. He is not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skyness. He is not possessed with dodges. His dietas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats, who arise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavad teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma which is taught by the Bhagavad is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction.
virtuous and liberating from all. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they showed the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore the virtues are inconceivable. May they be born and completely pure ground.
These verses on training the mind. With the
Determination to accomplish
the highest welfare
of all sentient beings, to surpass even their respect and jewel. I will learn to hold them supremely dear. Whenever I associate with others, I will learn to think of myself as the lowest amongst all, and respectfully hold others to be supreme from the very depths of my heart. In all actions, I will learn to search with my mind, and as soon as a disturbing emotion arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly face and avert it. I will learn to cherish ill-natured beings, and those oppressed by strong misdeeds and sufferings, as if I had found a precious treasure difficult to find. When others out of jealousy treat me badly, with abuse, slander, and so on, I will learn to take all loss and offer the victory to them. When the one whom I have benefited with great hope unreasonably hurts me very badly, I will learn to view that person as an excellent spiritual guide. In short, I will learn to offer to everyone without exception all help and happiness directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all harm and suffering of my others. I will learn to keep all these practices undefiled by the stains of vague worldly concerns, and by understanding all phenomena as like illusions, be released from the bondage of attachment.
prayer for the swift return of Dr. Rinpoche. Exalted wisdom
Of all victors gathered in a drop, soul refuge manifest in the form of the one wearing saffron robes. Guru Losant One Gojichan. Please bear witness here today that our prayers may be fulfilled. We beseech the great torch of doctrine, accomplishing from long ago the vast ways of aspirational prayers. Lord, speech of Victor Losant's teachings, spreading them to the ends of the earth by means of explanation and practice. Though holding the commitment, I will invite all beings to be my guest in unsurpassed great awakening. Yet you have withdrawn the activities of the form body that serves the welfare of others. Is that worthy of the supreme among beings, the Bodhisattvas? Though impossible for you so sick of existence and to abandon your commitment to liberate all beings, we beseech the new son of Nirmanakaya to swiftly return from the realm of Dharmakaya, brought forth by Bodhicitta drawn by 7 steeds. Having reached the far limits of scholarship, religious life, and goodness, please come swiftly as an unrivaled supreme emission, full order of the sage's teachings, and wish to fulfill jewel, return as the glory of Losang Tempe. The magnificent truth of the 3 precious jewels, Mahakala, Ramayana, and Srimati, the ocean of Dharma protectors, may you spontaneously fulfill our wish. The swift blossom of reincarnation's fresh moon on your face.
We will have class in New Jersey, South Orange on Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock. 502 North Gatewood Road, South Orange,